nature had always been there and had been a part of the process just as much as I exist in the world. Like, I spend time in the city, but the times when I truly get to reflect are when I leave the city. And I only realised that as people kept asking me, you know, in interviews, how London had affected my process. And for me, it really didn't play that much of a part in it. And when I got to the root of that question, I realised I hadn't been explicit about how nature and the wider world was a part of that. I had always wanted to create an opportunity where people who were interested in the creative arts could reach out or make contact with people that were existing in that sphere and working as a young creative. Growing up, I didn't necessarily have easy access to someone working in the creative industry, so it always appeared slightly mythical to me.
Take it!
The idea behind this workshop wasn't just to give people space to write, but to show them the environments that it could take you to. I don't think it was an everyday occurrence that the people there could, you know, be filmed or have access not just to someone like myself who writes for a living, but also, you know, the people behind the camera, the gaffer, the production assistants. Like, that's something someone probably wasn't even aware of, like, happened to make a day like that happen. So, you know, I really just wanted to offer an experience that was inspiring for life, not just for content to write about.
I've grown into the cliff of a seaside reef, reaching for more, never-ending, sort of sore. I've become disjointed, my bones peering out onto the sea, hoping the waves come back to sort me out, putting me together in abstract ways, a new terrestrial alien to devour the humanities. New art forms, new pain. Don't you know my performance is my love, and my love is cruel.
The reason why I picked Cosha and James in particular were because they're people who I had discovered along my journey as a songwriter, and I think they both hold a different cross-section for me as collaborators, because James was probably at the start when I didn't realise where my destination was, and Cosha was someone I met when I did know where I was heading.
Hello.
Hey, baby.
I come in here.
Yes.
Basically, I haven't had the chance to really chat to all you guys today because I've been in this other group. So I wanted to have a second and try and align where we were at over there. But basically, we've just been talking about finding inspiration points. That could be recurring themes that come up that we've revisited in our writing personally, or stuff that's happened today that's triggered any thought processes and things that feel like you gravitate towards. And it's good in this moment just to like be intuitive about it. It doesn't have to be too deep. I think first of all, it's nice to identify what's happening straight away at the front of our brains. So yeah, I just wanted you guys to like have a moment on your iPads and stuff and really like write that down, and then we're going to talk about it as a group and like dig into it a bit more.
Okay. Wonderful. I wrote down emotions. It's good to be vulnerable and free, and it's nice to have some silence. That's what I got. I feel like you wrote loads. No, I saw you.
Yeah.
I wrote as like this.
Oh, did you?
This.
Oh, was it? What's the?
I wrote like hyper-aware, self-conscious, because I remember we were discussing like how, like in the fashion world, you know, like you could feel so pressured by other people to uphold like a certain image, and you become hyper-aware of everything that you do and everything you wear and how you like can speak, especially today, because like we didn't know anyone here.
Yeah.
So it was quite nerve-wracking.
Thinking out of that, like out of today, like just like the endless possibilities, like going into nature, like you can like basically derive anything, like any, like it's like an infinite amount of things that you could probably like look at like a flower and like think different things about it, and it can mean different things to you. And I think like if we give ourselves the chance, like putting ourselves in nature like we did today, like did us good, like took us away from the city, put us into like something that we're not like used to like seeing often. And I think that's like just like another theme of possibility, you know.
Okay, I've actually never ever attempted to rhyme or poem or anything, so this is just my brain on the paper. I water the plants of my mind and purple roses stem from my skull. Miracles come in the form of violent hurricanes, but the pink sky after the storm reminds me that it's my world. That was a bit more, but yeah.
What was the sentiment that you started
Like
with?
what we were talking about earlier about how sometimes I feel very small in this world. When I think about how big this world is and the planets around us, I start to freak out a bit and think, like, what the hell? But it just reminds me that I need to push myself further to make my mark.
Would we be together if we took another form? I a tree and you a thorn. Would we be together if nothing at all exists? Formless dust, I'd still need your kiss.
Nice. Yeah. I feel like we're getting some poetic moments here, which is nice. But I always find sometimes then finding like the rhyming pattern of something, it just helps me expand.
I water the plants of my mind, and purple roses stem from my skull. Miracles come in the form of violent hurricanes, but the warm hue of the sky after the storm reminds me that it's my world. Honey-dipped planets orbit my mind, shooting stars straight to my heart and embracing me in the world's arms.
What is your first or most fond memory of either writing or storytelling?
My first memory is a memory of my mum used to make bookmarks for books for me, and she would always write a poem on the back of it. There'd be like a piece of card wrapped in some leftover wrapping paper, and then she would write on the back some prose, some sweet sentiment about how I meant everything to her, but in like, she'd rephrase it so that it felt grander than just a mom saying I love you, you know. It was something that was a bit more richer, and I think having that to begin with kind of made love seem grander to me, and it's probably why I revisit the subject so much.
Waiting in its purest form is a sort of eroticism. And then I continued that by saying, the promise of spring slowly compresses particles into mercuric glimmers of possibility. And I think my sentiment was just that, like, seasons and like how we wait, and like when it gets to winter we kind of just I can't wait for summer, and then when we're in summer we're like, it's so hot, I can't wait for winter, it cools down, or spring, autumn. And I think how that reflects into our life and our relationships with people, that like sometimes if we're in like this position where we're waiting for someone or something, it just happens that it's like almost like a tease. We don't know if it's coming. And just like winter, like imagine we have like a drought or something, and like rain, like you never know what's gonna happen. It becomes this sort of like game that you play with like the metaphysical world, or even just physically yourself.
It sounds like there's like a restlessness, you know, and like the pursuit of satisfaction, and like that ends up being the whole goal rather than that actual becoming satisfied. Yeah. That's nice. That's what I get from what you've just said anyway. Sometimes even the shape of the writing is something that I'm interested in. I like to look at a poem. I know I'm writing something that I want someone to read. I don't always think about me or rating it, but the shape can sometimes lend to the sentiment of what you're writing. That's why I like poetry. It's fun like that. It doesn't have to adhere to any kind of rules with English grammar or anything. You can actually go against that entirely in order to amplify the sentiment of what you're trying to write. Same with songwriting. The same with prose. There's really no real rules. Like, it's you that's in command of your tool right now.
Unfazed by the push and pull, your limbs collide with the gust and ripple, like just how
human beings or
Feels like
nature.
you're romanticizing the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice jump off. I think it sounds like it's the start of a poem. Yeah.
I kind of did that instead.
Yeah, it's nice.
Just a line because I didn't know what to write.
No, it's good. There's literally, you could have written anything, so it's nice that you kind of pinned it down to that.
Should you be sad for my happiness? Because I am. I left you and all the possibilities in our moments together. Who knows what happens when I come back? Time doesn't freeze when I leave the city that ages. Can I be still in that truth and come back recognizable to you? Am I leaving as an escape if I love the ground I've been bruised and held? Or was leaving my saving grace? I won't know until I've aged here into the star that I can be, so that I can come back with wings that can sweep you into a trance, a voice that can melt you with yearning and passion that never stops bleeding, so that you can taste what I've been keeping in my blood. I want this ocean to take me, so that I can learn of the siren's rock and cradle. Can this place take me to who I want to be?
No, I really love being by water in general. Like, I find it really, like, inspiring. Because it's so, like, it looks so beautiful, but it's also so dangerous. I feel like I'm just a witch who hasn't ascended yet. Like, I feel like a lot of things I, like, affirm happen. So, yeah, I definitely believe in, like, a mystical element to this world. And then when I was younger at school, I was in loads of little, like, youth groups or whatever, or I signed up to things, or there was this one thing, initiative at school where they would like identify people who were like into creative writing or whatever, and just having the space to like value it sometimes and just say that it's something that you enjoy and that feeds you. I found that really valuable, even if you don't put pen to page today or whatever, like just having the space to commemorate that you're into something and that it's worthwhile. Especially when it's like creative endeavors aren't always encouraged. I don't know about everyone's home life, but it's like it was something that was encouraged to have balance, but not as a career. And like that, so I never really considered it as like a career thing. But I think like maybe just asserting that it gives you balance in your life is a good foundation. The one thing as a writer, like that tends to become your like voice is the topics you go back to all the time, because it's like, oh yeah, and that writer is always writing kind of about that type of thing, or like in and around that subject matter and like turning it over. And I don't know, I find strength sometimes knowing that I'm not done with the subject, like that I'm like, yeah, this is how I'm describing it now, but I'm like, I have to come back to it. It's like love and relationships and people's kind of wants and needs to satisfy themselves is something that I always like spring back to. I can't help it, I find it fascinating. This album was coming back to a lot of things that had been there in my childhood. My family definitely made great efforts to immerse me in different environments, not just the British countryside, but also going back and visiting my grandparents in the Caribbean. One thing that is quite constant for me is my relationship with the ocean. It's something that I always try and make space for, and I feel really calmed and humbled by.